Hi there, we are going to revisit our Python guessing number game, but this time what we're going to do is incorporate the use of a method or a function in order to make the game a little bit more sophisticated, but not making it much more complex in terms of the meat of the game. So if you recall, we had built this before, and we had two spots where we were asking for user input. We actually had to do a little bit of error handling there because we realized that the input function in Python always takes in text or takes in strings. So we had to cast those strings to ints in order for our game to work. But there's some unintended consequences from this that we need to take a look at. So first of all, there's some general problems. For example, we can guess a number that is way larger than what we actually want. We can also guess negative numbers, which we also probably don't want to allow. But then we run into this other problem, where if the user types something that's not a number, like the word cat, for example, it crashes our program entirely. Now, we're going to need to add lines of code in order to fix that, but we don't really want to make this section of our program any more complicated. Doing error handling in the middle of a guessing game just to validate input isn't really part of the guessing game. That's part of getting a number of validating input. So what we're going to do instead is we are going to define a function. So we're giving ourselves a little bit of room. We're going to write def to define something. We're going to define a function or a method called get guess. Add parentheses there and a semicolon. And now all of these lines here that are tabbed in under this definition are defining what it means to get a guess. And to keep it real simple for right now, we're just going to take what we already had and put it right here with a return statement. I'll explain what that means in a second. And just replace what we had below with get guess. We're going to do the same thing here, even though the print statement was a little bit different. Whoops. Sorry for that. Get guess. Okay, so we have not changed this program at all, except where we had this line before, we've replaced it with the phrase get guess, which just says, go find the definition of this function and run it. Well, here's the definition of the function. And we already do this very often in our programs. Here is a function call to getting a random integer. Here's a function call to printing. So we already use methods or functions quite a bit. And we're just now going to start making our own. This return statement up here says, send back information when you're done. So when we call get guess, we run up and we run through all the lines of this function. When it's done, we return back to the program. But if we write the word return, it allows us to also send some information back. In this case, the input that the person typed in. So let's do a quick test. Make sure that it still behaves the way it did a moment ago. Enter a guess. 10,000, enter a guess, -12, enter a guess, cat, oh, actually it doesn't look like, oh, it didn't say wrong, but we just changed that text. But if we write cat, still breaks the program. So let's go into our get guess definition and fix it up a little bit. So the biggest problem we're running into, okay, we'll give ourselves some more room, is that we are assuming that this input is a number and we can convert it to an int. But that's not a safe assumption. So what we're going to do is make a temporary variable up here, it's called temp, which is equal to the input, enter a guess. And we're going to do a quick check. So we're going to say, or we're going to use this this function called, or reservoir called try, which says, try to do this conversion. See if it will work. So we're going to say, try to convert temp to an int, and we'll just reassign it to the same variable. And if that doesn't work, or if it does work, that's great, return temp. But if it doesn't work, we know then we don't actually have an integer. So we could write the reserve word except. So this is an exception or an exceptional case. So if we try to do this and it didn't work, it'll jump here. And then what we could do is print a message that says something along the lines of not a valid number, or try again. And we can actually use a form of looping called recursive calls, which is when we have a method call itself. So what we can do is have temp equal to, a recursive call to get guess. So what's going to happen is when our guess is correctly entered, it's going to be returned and sent back to the program. And in the event that we can't convert it to an int, it is going to print not valid. It's going to call get guess again, and that'll keep happening in a loop until finally a valid integer is typed in which case it will be assigned to temp and then it will be returned. So let's try running it. Enter a guess. Let's do our 10,000 first as a test, a -12 as a test. Now let's try cat and see what happens. This is not a valid number, try again. And I can type in all kinds of gibberish and it won't work, but it also won't crash my program until finally I write in a number. Let's try 7. And important thing to notice here is that it's still counted my guesses correctly. So even though I entered input a lot of times, I wasn't actually taking valid guesses. The only guesses that were counted were the ones that executed, finished this function, assigned that value, and then got to this count line. So because a lot of these got caught in this loop up here, I wasn't counting invalid guesses. Now, that doesn't do anything to fix my 10,000 or -12, so let's try to get those next. If I get to this line, I know that my guess is a number, it's been converted, so now I can check to see if it's negative. So if temp is less than 0, I know that I have a negative message or a negative number. Let's print another error. How about negative values not allowed? Try again. And we'll do the same thing. We'll take a get guess. I'll do another recursive call. And if that's not the case, so say it's not negative, well, let's try this first and make sure that that works, because we always want to take little tiny steps and as we're going. So let's do 10,000, -12, negative value is not allowed. Try again, -5, -7, cat, -2, oops. And then I think I hit enter twice possibly. In line, let's see, let's look at that error message. In line 29, user guess equals get guess. Line 9 and get guess at temp. Not supported between instances of function and int. So that's interesting. We had some kind of interesting comparison here where temp was a function. I don't know why. So let's try running again and see if I can recreate that error. Cat, -10. Let's see. Negative value is not allowed. Try again. Temp is, I forgot my parentheses here. That's why. There we go. Now we can run cat, -12, -10, cat, dog, hat, -5, and let's try now 4. And hey, look at that. I only had one valid guess, and that one valid guess was counted correctly. We also want to deal with the issue of guessing too high. Now, to do this, we want to add one more element to our function. We want to add what's called a parameter. So down in our main program, we have this number 10 in here. This is an example of something I would call hard-coded, meaning this program is always going to generate a random int up to 10. But it would be a lot better programming style to use a variable here. Let's call it maxnum. And we're going to go up here and define maxnum to be 10. And then we're going to go down to get guess here and say get a guess up to the maxnum. And same thing here, a guess up to the maxnum. So now if I decide to change the game and want it to go to 100, I have to make a change in one spot, and it'll go through all 3 of these places. Let's keep it at 10 for now, and just to show you it hasn't changed anything. Oops, I guess I did change something. What did I break? Max, all right, so what I did was I started trying to use a parameter down here without changing the definition of get guess. So now I want to make sure that up here I have included a variable in its definition, or a prompt, not a prompt, a parameter in the definition, meaning that in order to get a guess, you need to tell me a piece of information, you need to tell me the max that I'm working up to. So since we started writing, we might as well just continue. We'll go down here and say, if the temp is not less than 0, there is a chance that it could be greater than our max. So we can do an elif temp is greater than the max num. That means it is too big. So I'll say print too big must the max value is max num. And again, we'll do our recursive call, temp equals get guess, and we should be working out. So let's try running again. Enter a guess, 10,000. Too big, the max value is 10. Oh, and I broke it again. So let's see what happened this time. Line 30, user guess equals max num. Line 40, temp equals get guess. Oh, so now all of these calls also need that parameter in order for it to work. So max num, and just copy that down. Max num and max num. There we go. All right, 10,000. Too big, max value is 10. How about 11? Too big, max value is 10. How about negative 12? Negative value is not allowed. Try again. How about cat? Not a valid number. Try again. And how about 7? A little bit too high. How about 6? All right. Took me 2 guesses. So what we've done is we have taken that one line of code we started with, input, enter a guess, and we cast it to an int. And we've done a whole lot more error handling. And we want to capture that somehow in a note, because when we go down to our main program, which doesn't really look like it's changed much, we can look at this get guess method call and infer from it that it goes and gets the guess. But we did a lot more than that. We did some error handling, so we want to make sure that we capture that in a comment. So we're going to go up to the top. And actually, I don't know how to do a block comment in Python, so I'm going to Google that real fast. Comment in Python. Let's see. Start with the hashtag followed by a single space and a comment. Oh, wait, but I want to do a multi-line comment in Python. So let's see. I know the hashtag or the $ is a single line comment. And I don't see, this website wants me to sign up for emails, and I don't want that. Looks like Python does not have a block comment. That's probably why I didn't know it. So we'll just do one line at a time with the line comments. And what we're going to do is write a note here and describe what this method does. So get guess takes in a max value for an acceptable int input, prompts the user for input, validates that the input is an int, greater, or we'll say non-negative, because we did allow 0, non-negative, and below the max num, then returns it. All right, now we have a 15-line function we have defined, yet our main program is not really any longer. In fact, it's the same number of lines we started with. So we've made this program a lot more sophisticated in how it handles input, but we haven't made this program any more complex. And that is the value of using methods in your software design. Bye now.